everybody. This is our first video in the unit that's covering transformations, and this unit's going to have 4 individual topics, and each of these topics are different types of transformations. This video is going to cover translations, and translations are what we call slides. So we are looking at shapes that are either sliding left and right, up and down, and combinations of those two. Our next video will cover reflections, and these are flips of some kind that will not be in this video. A rotation is like a turn, but rotate usually as a word is something that we're pretty familiar with, in general, at least mostly. And then a dilation, it either makes something shrink or get bigger. So this video is going to cover just translations or just slides. So as we are looking at this, there are some vocabulary terms that are really important. And the first vocabulary term is pre-image, and emphasizing the word pre here, which means the starting shape. So whatever you had before or pre the transformation. So in this shape, the pre-image is here on the left, which means the image is sliding to the right, or we would call translating to the right. So then that leaves us to the image, which is our ending shape that we're dealing with. And what's really important, and you will see some terminology like this, if we call this point A, that's the pre-image point, then we call A prime, that little symbol we call that prime, would be the post-image shape. So if we were looking at B, after the transformation, we'd be looking at B prime. And what that means is those 2 points should match. Now, if you look at the shape that we created on the left, the shape here is exactly the same as the shape on the right, just in a new location. We call that congruent, which would be the same, the same shape with the same size. So when we are looking at translations, all translations are congruent. So everything in this video should be congruent to what we end with. And then, of course, the other term here is similar, which is if something gets bigger or smaller. So it's the same shape, but different sizes. So the only one of the transformations that will be a different shape is actually a dilation, which should be the last video. So there's our vocabulary. If you bring this vocabulary up to me, you can get 5 SPs. So let's do an example here. So we are going to translate the rectangle ABCD 6 units to the right. Okay, so this means slide the rectangle 6 units to the right in this direction. Now, when we do a translation, what's important to remember is that the image and the pre-image must be congruent. So after I translate the shape, it should not change anything about the shape. So we know that point A is, it looks like -9 and +9, because it's here and then up 9. Point B is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Back and then 9 up. Point C is 5 back and then 6 up, which would leave point D as 9 back and 6 up. So there are 4 points. So we are now looking for A prime, B prime, C prime, and D prime. Okay, with the little tick marks, and we're moving them to the right. So to make this shape congruent, what I do is I take each individual point and I translate it 6 units to the right. So let's start with point A. So point A is right here, and I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. and A prime will be right there. B, same idea, 6 units to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there is now my B prime. C prime, because it's 3 down from B, C is 3 points down from B, C prime should be 3 points below B prime. And then finally that would put D prime right here. And using the fact that these shapes have to be congruent to each other means that once you graph that first line, you can really start to shortcut the other steps in the process. So there we have A prime, B prime, C prime, and D prime. Just from the eye test, it looks like these are congruent, so I probably have it correct. So now let's get our points correct. So A is -3, but still up 9. B is 1, still up 9. C is 1, still up 6. And D is -3, still up 6. And if I notice, the only value that changed here is the x coordinate of each of the ordered pairs. So we can actually write it like this: x plus 6 comma y. And if we think about it, what we do is we take the x value and we add 6 to it. So from this x value to this x value, we increased it by 6. But the y value stayed the same. And for each of these values, it ended up being true. So this right here is another way to write a translation of 6 units to the right. Now, most of the time, you're going to see it in words. But a lot of times in IXL, they try to write it this way. Just remember, it is not any different than what you've been doing. Let's do one more example. So I'm going to translate the triangle XYZ 2 units down and 3 units left. Once again, remembering that my image and pre-image must be congruent. So before I do anything else, I want to graph the points X, Y, and Z from my graph. So X is right here. Y is right here. And Z is right there. So there is our triangle. Let's draw our lines in. And now I want to translate this triangle 2 units down and 3 units left. So as I do that, reminding us from before, it's best to look at each individual point and translate it separately. So X, for example, will go down 1, 2, and then over 1, 2, 3. And right there is X prime. Z will go down 1, 2, and then left 1, 2, 3. Right there is Z prime. So our Y prime should be 1, 2, 3, 4 points below our X prime. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4 points down, and here is our Y prime. We can now connect those points to make our new triangle. And so I have my new points that we can write over here on the side. Actually, let's do it in blue just to make it not confusing. X prime is -2 and then up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's -2, comma 7. Our Y prime is -2 and then up 3. And finally, our Z prime is +1, +3. Now, just like before, we can write this in a slightly different format where it says 2 units down would be taking the Y value and subtracting 2, and 3 units left would be taking the X value and taking 3 away. So X minus 3 means moving left 3 points, and Y minus 2 means moving down 2 points. And so it's actually possible, if I covered my shapes up here, for us to still do this graph and find where the image and pre-images should be. Because if I take the x value from here, I have to subtract 2, and I'm left with -2. I take the y value, and I subtract 2, and I'm left with 7. So even though we used the picture first, or the graph first, you can actually use the ordered pairs as well to help you graph these points. So that's translating figures. Remember, this is the first of the 4 different types of transformations. There is a video retake if you need some more help, but otherwise, if you have any questions, please let me know.